My siblings always looked down on me and refused to let me attend their weddings. So when it was my turn, I left them off the guest list. The outcome left them stunned. My name is Emily, and I'm the youngest out of 5 children. My brothers and sister, Mike, Chris, Rachel, and Josh, were so much older than me that often I felt like I belonged to a completely different family. By the time I was old enough to build memories, they were already moving away, heading to college, or beginning their own adult journeys. It seemed like I was an afterthought, a strange little tag-along they were forced to endure. Still, I adored them. When you're the youngest, your older siblings seem like superheroes. As a little kid, I thought Mike was basically a legend. He was the cool eldest brother who could do no wrong. Chris, though more reserved and serious, still held my admiration. Rachel was the big sister I desperately hoped would let me into her world and teach me how to be like her. Josh, the youngest among the older siblings, felt closest to me in age. Yet even he kept his distance. The first time I truly realized how little I mattered to them was at Mike's wedding. I was 10 years old then. It's that awkward age where you feel mature enough to be included in grown-up events but are still seen as just a kid. When Mike and his fiance, Sarah, announced they were planning a child-free wedding, I naively assumed it wouldn't apply to me. After all, I wasn't some random, unruly child who'd throw tantrums or disrupt the ceremony. I was his sister. I remember clearly the day my parents sat me down. I had been so thrilled that I even asked my mom if I could borrow one of her necklaces for the occasion. That's when she broke the news. "Mike and Sarah are having an adults-only wedding, Emily. You won't be able to come," she said gently. I stared at her, confused. "But I'm not like other kids," I insisted, trying to convince her. "I'll behave, I promise." She just patted my head softly, as if I were a pet. "It's for adults only, sweetheart. You'll understand when you're older." But I didn't understand. I sobbed in my room for hours. Mike was my brother, and I wanted to be part of his big day. I longed to see Sarah, who already felt like a sister to me, walk down the aisle. But instead, my parents hired a babysitter for me. I remember sitting and watching the clock, picturing everything I was missing. When Mike returned from his honeymoon, I half expected him to mention it. Maybe he'd apologize for my absence or share some funny stories from the wedding. But he said nothing. It was as if I hadn't existed at all during that important moment. 2 years later, when Chris got engaged, I was 12. I truly believed things would be different this time. I was older, more composed, extremely well-behaved. I didn't whine or make trouble, and I made sure everyone knew it. So when they announced another child-free wedding, I thought, surely this time I'll be included? Wrong. Once again, I received the same explanation. "Chris and his fiance want an adults-only wedding, Emily. It's nothing personal." Nothing personal? How could it not feel personal after being excluded twice? I fought hard not to cry this time. I was older now, trying to show maturity. I didn't beg or protest. I just sat quietly while my parents gave their excuses. My mom even attempted to console me. "You'll have your own beautiful wedding one day. You'll see." But her words didn't comfort me. I was beginning to understand something important. My siblings didn't see me as part of the family in the same way I saw them. When Rachel got engaged, I was 15, a full-fledged teenager desperate to be included. Initially, Rachel hadn't planned on banning kids from her wedding. She wanted a big gathering with everyone present. But of course, extended family got involved. Aunts and uncles kept chiming in, saying things like, "It's so refreshing to have a wedding without kids causing chaos." Eventually, Rachel gave in. The rule became, no one under 16 allowed. I was 15, so painfully close, that it felt like a punch to the gut. I went to Rachel and pleaded, "Can I just be an exception? I'm your sister. I'll be quiet. I promise." Rachel gave me this serious, almost pained look and said, "If I make an exception for you, I'll have to do it for all the other kids. It wouldn't be fair." Fair? Seriously? I lost it. I started shouting, "It's not fair that I'm never allowed at any of your weddings. I'm not just another kid. I'm your sister." That's when my parents intervened. I was grounded 6 whole months for disrespecting Rachel and causing drama. Half a year. I spent most of that time holed up in my room, stewing in anger and sorrow. By the time Josh got engaged and I was 17, I didn't even bother asking. I already knew the answer. Sure enough, when the announcement came, child-free wedding. At that point, I felt numb. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't even question it. I simply accepted it. What hurt the most? My cousin Amanda, who had just turned 18, was invited. I heard about it through the family gossip network. Apparently, 18 was considered the magic number. Amanda was only a few months older than me, but because she'd crossed the threshold into adulthood, she was welcome. When my parents asked why I hadn't made a big fuss congratulating Josh, I just shrugged. I sent a quick text. "Congrats, hope you have a great day." Then I retreated to my room, like always. By then, I was emotionally detached. I realized I simply didn't matter to them. I wasn't truly their little sister, just a child they barely noticed. And it hurt. God, it hurt deeply. Years went by after the final wedding. I stopped trying to force my way into my siblings' lives because honestly, I was exhausted. Exhausted from always being the outsider. Tired of being the little sister no one cared about unless it suited them. By the time I met my now fiance, Tyler, I had emotionally detached from my family dynamic. I didn't expect much from any of them anymore. Tyler was the first person who actually listened when I opened up about my family. I remember sitting on his couch, telling him about being excluded from all 4 of my siblings' weddings, and he looked genuinely appalled. "Wait, they didn't invite you? Not even when you were 15?" he asked. "Nope," I said, trying to laugh it off like it no longer hurt. "What the hell? You're their sister," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. He just sat there for a moment, stunned, then added, "That's seriously messed up." That was when it really hit me, how wrong it truly was. I'd spent so many years convincing myself it was normal. Sure, child-free weddings sound reasonable on paper. It's not like they were targeting me, right? But when it happens 4 separate times, with not a single person speaking up for you, that's not normal. So when Tyler and I got engaged a few years later, I was sure of one thing. My wedding would be different. It would be filled with people who genuinely cared about me, people who were happy to celebrate with me, not just show up out of obligation. That's when I made my choice. I wasn't inviting my siblings. It wasn't some dramatic announcement. I didn't craft a rage-fueled letter or blast it across the family group chat. I simply left them off the guest list. Simple as that. I knew it would cause chaos eventually, but I figured I'd deal with it when the time came. The first signs of trouble showed up about 2 months before the wedding. One afternoon, my mom called out of the blue, sounding overly cheerful. I should have sensed something was up. "So, Emily," she said in that syrupy voice she always used when she was about to ask for something, "how are the wedding plans coming along?" "Good," I said cautiously. "That's wonderful," she chirped, pausing just a little too long before adding, "Your brothers and sister haven't received their invitations yet. Did you already send them out?" My heart started hammering. I wasn't ready to have this conversation. "Yeah, I sent them," I replied as casually as I could. She didn't hesitate. "Well, they didn't get them? Maybe they got lost in the mail?" I sighed heavily. "Mom, I didn't invite them." Silence. A heavy, stunned pause on the other end of the line. Then the explosion. "What, Emily? How could you not invite your own siblings? What is wrong with you?" I clenched the phone tightly, trying to keep my voice steady. "They didn't invite me to their weddings, Mom. Not once. I'm just returning the favor. Seems fair to me." She sounded like I had slapped her. "That was different," she insisted. "You were just a child. They didn't mean to hurt you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Maybe they didn't mean it, but it hurt anyway, and I'm tired of pretending it didn't." She immediately launched into a guilt trip. "Emily, you're being spiteful. Family is family. You can't just shut them out like this. What will people think?" And there it was. What will people think? Her favorite concern. I cut her off before she could go further. "I don't care what people think, Mom. This is my wedding, and I'm only inviting people who actually care about me. They didn't care enough to include me back then, so I don't see why they deserve to be included now." She hung up on me. I wasn't even surprised. That night, the family group chat blew up. Rachel started, predictably fake. "Hey, Em, did something happen with the mail? We haven't gotten our invites yet." Then Chris chimed in, more direct. "What's going on? Why weren't we invited?" I stared at my phone, debating whether to respond. Part of me wanted to lay it all out, to tell them exactly how much pain they'd caused me over the years. But deep down, I knew it would be pointless. They would never understand. They never had. So I didn't reply. I left their messages unread. Tyler noticed how quiet I was during dinner and asked me what was wrong. I showed him the texts, and he shook his head. "You don't owe them anything, Em." "Yeah, but..." I trailed off. "They're going to make me the villain. I know it." "Let them," he said firmly. "You know the truth. That's all that matters." The next day, my parents showed up at my apartment without warning. I didn't even need to ask why they were there. My mom stormed in the second I opened the door. "What are you thinking, Emily? Not inviting your siblings? What kind of person does that?" I tried to stay calm, though I could feel my patience thinning. "Mom, like I said, none of them thought I was important enough to include back then. I'm just doing the same now." My dad finally spoke, voice firm. "You're being immature, Emily. You're clinging to things that happened years ago." That's when I lost it. I was a child when they excluded me, Dad. I begged to be part of their weddings and they shut me out every single time. Don't call me immature when I was the one crying alone at home. 4 times. They didn't know what to say. My mom looked like she was about to burst into tears, but I wasn't falling for it this time. You can defend them all you want, I said sharply, but I'm not changing my mind. If they cared about me, they would have shown it back then. They left, furious. And over the next few days, my siblings' messages got nastier. Chris called me selfish. Rachel accused me of tearing the family apart. Josh didn't even bother pretending to be nice. You're being petty, Emily. Grow up. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. One night, Tyler pulled me into a hug while I scrolled through their texts, silent tears running down my face. I'm proud of you, you know, he said softly, for standing up for yourself. And for the first time in a long, long while, I was proud of myself too. I truly believed that after the wedding, the worst of the family drama was behind me. The ceremony had been everything I had ever dreamed of, perfect, beautiful, full of genuine love, and I finally felt like I had moved beyond the toxic cycle with my family. I didn't miss them at the ceremony. Not once did I find myself wishing they were there. I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, and that was all I needed. But if there's one thing I should have remembered about my family, it's that they absolutely hate being ignored. They just couldn't accept the fact that I was happy without them. So, they decided to stir up drama one more time. It started with a message from Rachel about a week after the wedding. Of course it was Rachel. She always had to throw the first stone when it came to family fights. I saw some photos from your wedding, she texted. I can't believe you had it in a garden. It looked really casual, but I guess that's the kind of wedding you wanted. I stared at her message stunned. She couldn't even fake kindness for a moment. It wasn't enough for her to just leave me alone. She had to find something to criticize. I almost responded with something snarky, maybe a comment about how her wedding might have been more lavish, but at least mine was surrounded by people who actually cared. But I stopped myself. I owed her nothing. A few days later, messages started trickling in from extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Apparently, Rachel, Mike, and Chris were busy running a full-blown campaign to paint me as the villain. My Aunt Linda, yes, the same one who guilt-tripped me before the wedding, reached out again. Emily, she wrote, I don't know what's going on between you and your siblings, but they're really hurt. Rachel told me she tried reaching out and you're ignoring her. Maybe it's time to move past it? I sighed, rolling my eyes. How many people were they going to drag into this? How many times would I have to explain myself before they finally accepted that I wasn't changing my mind? Tyler noticed how frustrated I looked and sat down beside me. Another guilt trip? He asked, glancing at my phone. Yeah, Aunt Linda again, I said. Apparently my siblings are really hurt. He snorted. Hurt because they lost their control over you, he said. I smiled weakly. He wasn't wrong. I just don't get it, I muttered. They shut me out for years. I spent my entire childhood begging to be included. And now that I finally set a boundary, I'm the bad guy. That's how it always works, he said softly. When you start protecting yourself, the people who mistreated you will always cry the loudest. The real low point came a few days later when my mom showed up without warning. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon. Tyler and I were making pancakes in our pajamas, laughing over the disaster of our first few attempts. When the knock came, I just knew. I opened the door, and sure enough, there she was. My mom, standing there with that familiar expression of disappointment and drama. Emily, she said immediately, her voice dripping with urgency. We need to talk. I sighed. Mom, now really isn't a good time, I said, trying to block the door with my body. She ignored me, trying to push her way inside. Tyler appeared behind me, placing a supportive hand on my back. Emily, please, she said. This has gone too far. Your siblings are heartbroken. Do you really want to tear this family apart? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. You don't get to come here and lecture me, Mom, I said steadily. I invited the people who actually care about me. They didn't make the cut, and that's on them, not me. Her face crumbled into that shocked, wounded look I knew so well. You don't mean that, she whispered. They love you, Emily. They're your family. No, Mom, I said. Family doesn't make you feel small. Family doesn't leave you behind every single time something important happens. I spent years trying to prove that I mattered to them, and they never once cared. I'm done. She blinked at me, at a total loss for words. For once, she wasn't able to guilt-trip me back into submission. Tyler stepped forward and said, very gently but firmly, I think you should leave. My mom's face twisted between anger and heartbreak. You'll regret this, she said quietly, like a warning. One day, you'll miss us, and we won't be there. I met her gaze without flinching. No, Mom. I won't. Tyler shut the door behind her. I just stood there for a moment, stunned by the strange sense of peace that washed over me. I thought I'd feel guilty, but I didn't. I felt free. The next day, Chris sent me a nasty text. Mom said you slammed the door in her face. Real mature, Emily. You're not the sister I remember. I read it aloud to Tyler, who just shook his head. Block him, he said simply. You don't need that energy. And so I did. One by one, I blocked every sibling, every cousin, every relative who tried to drag me back into the mess. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe them anything. Not my time, not my energy, and certainly not an explanation. For years, they made me feel invisible. Now, finally, I was reclaiming my space. The weeks that followed were the quietest I could remember. Without their constant passive-aggressive comments and guilt trips, I could actually breathe. Tyler and I focused on our life together, setting up our apartment, making future plans, finding joy in the little things. One night, while we sat on the couch watching a cheesy movie, Tyler turned to me and asked, "Do you regret it? Not having them at the wedding?" I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said. "I thought I would, but I don't. I spent so long chasing their approval, and for what? I don't miss them. I don't miss feeling like I'm not enough." He squeezed my hand and smiled. "Good. You deserve better." And he was right. I did deserve better. About a month after the wedding, I received one final message, this time from Rachel's number, clearly using someone else's phone since I had already blocked hers. "You destroyed this family, Emily. Hope you're happy." I stared at it for a second, then deleted it without a second thought. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt done. Because the truth was, I was happy. For the first time in my life, I wasn't begging for scraps of affection. I wasn't chasing after people who didn't value me. I was surrounded by real love, and that was more than enough. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and heartfelt stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more content like this to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.